Okay, good morning. You're gonna notice it's really dark. Yeah, I woke up at like 4 o'clock. Couldn't get back to sleep. I was like, you know what? I actually got so much to do today. I really, there's a lot of stuff I want to get done off my plate and just, be able to enjoy Christmas weekend. I gotta go over to the in-laws and, show up, have fun. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy Christmas. I like having a day off. I mean, it's not my holiday, but I get it off anyway. Recognizing I'm always on call, but I enjoy that. Don't get me wrong. That being said, I really want to set myself up for success, and I recognize the lighting is not great, which means the video quality is not going to be great. And in fact, I wasn't going to do a video. I was like, you know what? It's going to be so low quality, nobody's going to want to watch it. But man, if I got something to talk about, and this is something where I don't I have solutions. They're not perfect. Yeah, they are not perfect. But that being said, Apple and Android. Okay. I am not saying that Apple should have to let people who aren't paying them use their servers or services by any means. I think that's wrong. That would be theft. And if the government were to mandate it, that would be government theft, which is a horrible crime. Okay? Don't get me wrong. But I use iPhone. I use it really mostly because of the health data ecosystem. And that is really the only thing that at this point it keeps bringing me back. I don't give a darn about the blue bubble iMessage thing. I'd turn off iMessage in a heartbeat. No problem. It got me what I wanted, which is the ability for me to get my texts on other devices that aren't Apple's, based on what I want, me, the owner of these devices. On Android, and by the way, I've switched to Android so many dang times in the last 10 years. This last time, I spent a lot of my money switching myself and my wife over to Android. And I think I lasted, 9 months? Before I was like, Android works pretty damn well. I don't like it. Oh God, the Z Fold 4? Oh, that was so awesome. I loved it. I can fold it out. I've got a big phone. I can fold it in. Now I've got a smaller phone. I do wish the dimensions were a little bit more normal because I basically never used it folded. Folded. I always unfolded it to use it. Don't get me wrong. That was really nice. That being said, and then Google Messages, where I can get to those messages from anywhere. It's got a web browser. I can get to them securely. That was awesome. Meant I could get to them at work. I could get to them at home. I could get to them on my iPad. I could get to them on my Android tablet. I could get to them anywhere I wanted. And if I wanted to use, Signal? Yeah, Signal. Anywhere the Signal app worked. I could also send SMS. That was great. That was awesome. Now, I have a Mac. I have a MacBook Pro, M1 Pro. Great laptop, by the way. Microsoft has got to move the Windows world over to ARM. Dear God, the battery life on that thing is freaking awesome. I love it. It's performant. The operating system is fine. I have no problem with the Mac OS operating system. I definitely need things like terminal and all because I need to be able to run commands like ping and mtr and dig, which on Windows you end up basically having to load Linux just to do. But that's fine. Those are all just different platforms, and I can choose which platforms I want to use for a given situation. In fact, I use Windows, Linux, and Mac all the time at home, and I use Windows and Linux all the time at work, and I use my Mac when I need to. As a CTO, I'm not happy about the fact that I'm using my personal Mac at work. Really not happy about that, actually. I get to approve the exceptions to my policy, and I've approved my own exception to my own policy. But it annoys me that I even have to do that just so I can get my stupid text messages. this guy behind me, or this guy right beside me, really just wants to go super freaking fast. So I'm just gonna let him. Anyways, that being said, I use Beeper not because I'm an Android user who really wants the blue bubbles. No! Don't give a damn about your stupid blue bubbles. I'm sorry. It really is not that big a deal. And I'm in Gen X. I'm a young Gen Xer. But still, okay? And the younger kids, they don't seem to care that much. They really don't. The elder millennials and the Gen Xers are really the only ones that seem to care about blue versus green bubbles. Because the younger kids honestly don't use iMessage or text anyways. They're using other platforms. They're using Discord and Telegram and whatever the heck Microsoft's one is. I forget. There's off the top of my head. I've got at least a couple. Because they got Facebook Messenger, which of course nobody uses. But then they've got something else. I forget. Sorry, that lights up. Lights are kind of out here on the highway to a point. Anyways, but I want cross-device SMS. I want to be able to send an SMS or receive an SMS on any of my ding devices. And Verizon used to have this ability. They called it Messages Plus. This is before Google's RCS support was really quite good. Okay, fine. You want to go super fast around me because I'm going the speed limit. And you are like zoom around me. So, fork off. Wow. Anyway. I want to be able to get my chip messages everywhere. Now, see if I live in just an Apple walled garden. Oh, iMessage does that. In fact, that's the only thing I really care about with iMessage. I really don't send money through it. Like, every once in a while, my brother-in-law, I send money to him, and it's always Apple Cash. Because that's really the only way you can send it. Otherwise, we write him a check or we just give him cash. But I don't use the stupid iMessage apps stuff. I don't know, it's just kind of gimmicky and weird. Honestly, yeah, I don't know. I never quite got those kinds of things as a techie guy. I just don't use them. Because it sort of assumes that the person or people in the group are using the exact same app. Oh, let's coordinate a table using Gilp. Why don't we just coordinate a table by talking to each other or texting each other about what we want to do and when we want to meet up? You know, like, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. But I don't care about the blue part. I care about getting it on my stuff. If I'm on my iPad, iMessage lets me send texts. If I'm on a Mac, my Mac lets me send texts. If I'm on my Windows machine, oh no, you don't get to do that. We don't support that. We won't even support it through a web browser. A forking web browser. If iCloud.com had /messages or whatever they wanted to call it, and I could get to it from a web browser, I wouldn't be complaining. Like, my use case for Beeper would be a lot less. Not none. Because I like being able to do things like copy paste, registration codes or whatever, which Beeper does. But that being said, it'd be a lot less of a use case. I could probably deal with having to copy paste through a web interface. That's fine. I should leave it up, just like I did iMessage or AirMessage, which I actually also am now using. Back to using AirMessage, because honestly, the Beeper stuff isn't working reliably for iMessage. Again, Apple, I think, is just starting to block their servers entirely. Like, not just the registration code wise. I think they're blocking the IP. And I'm like, here's the problem. I've authorized that device. I, Christopher Wiegand, authorized that device to access my account. Why is Apple interfering with my ability to access my account data? Why? Because as far as Apple's concerned, they know better than I do. Cool, you don't. But thanks. Thanks. I actually do understand what I'm doing. I understand that I'm authorizing another company access to my iMessage data. Yes, I chose to do that. I chose to explicitly take the steps necessary to authorize them to do that, and now they're blocking it. Again. That I have a problem with. Apple's walled garden is predicated on the concept that they know better than you what you want, or what's best for you. I don't like Big Daddy syndrome. which is what I'm going to call that. I don't like it. I don't like it. Let me choose. And yeah, that's what keeps making me think, man, you know what? That's a huge turnoff, Apple. It really is. Yes, I love the fact that your stuff all works together. You're assuming that no one else could possibly work with you in a secure fashion. Beeper even said, hey, we're open sourcing all of our stuff. It's out there. You can audit it. You can self-host it. So if Apple was to claim it's insecure, show up with some proof. Apple's unable to right now. Oh, they hacked Apple's authentication. No, because that's actually not a thing. It's not here in America. You don't get to hack somebody's authentication. It's there, and they reverse engineered it, and it's protected under copyright law. They're not hacking a damn thing. They're using your service, just like any other device, because in fact, they're using Macs. Or at least they were using Macs for the parts that they needed to use Macs for, and everything else, they're just talking to APIs. It's no different from iCloud PD for downloading your photos, or honestly just accessing iCloud.com. And yeah, I think if Apple made an iMessage web interface, this problem would basically be solved. Because then you just have to approve that interface, and then if there's an app that is choosing to scrape that interface and you've approved it, that's kind of on you, you know? But anyways, it's that problem that I have. And then everybody's like, oh, Android users just want the blue bubbles. It's not just Android users who want blue bubbles. I'm sure there are Android users who want blue bubbles. There's some of us who want cross-platform accessibility. What if I don't want to use a Mac all the time? What if I want to use one? What if I want to play a game? I am sorry, Mac gaming still sucks arse. You'll notice City Skylines 2 isn't available on it at all. And right now there's no plan to bring that to the Mac. If it was so easy to do, to port a game to Mac, they would probably be doing it. Because if it was easy, then it wouldn't cost them a lot. But they'd get access to this giant platform with all these people, right? Oh, no, actually, not really. Because there's really not that many Mac users who are going to game. It's just not how that works. I don't think my Starbucks is open this early. It's like 5:30. I don't think they're open this early. Oh, I'll have to see. Maybe they are. Yeah, you know what? Maybe they are. Maybe they just opened. Or not. I don't know. I will... it's just a bump in the road. But as I guess I will park and find out. But it's just... I don't like it. I do not like being forced to do things one way. I like flexibility. That's one of the things I love about Android. I can change my home screen. I can change my SMS app. I can choose dynamic backgrounds. I can choose these things based on how I want the platform to work. And if I don't like it, I can write my own app to do XYZ. And depending on the phone manufacturer, it's unlocked, I can do that. Now, I will say I no longer buy Android phones from a carrier ever, because they not only lock them, but in the case of Verizon, they bootloader lock them so that you cannot use it for development, which I hate. I truly, truly hate that. So that, combined with the fact that I don't like buying from carriers anyways, not because of the carrier contract lock-in, actually it's more just the fact that the carrier then gets to dictate other things. Like, I have two carriers. I have Google Fi for my original line I grew up with as a kid. When my grandma passed away, I got that line, that phone number. It's been in my family longer than I have, since April of '74. And because we actually pulled the records from, what was it at the time? Well, at the time it was AT&T, forever back ago, but nowadays it's CenturyLink or whatever they're calling themselves now. And so, it was like, wow, this account has been open that long. Wow, that predates me, guys. But I grew up with this number. I moved it to Google Fi. It's my second line. My main line is Verizon, because here in the Denver area, they are the one to use if you want reliable data and calls. If you want reliable calls and fast speed, you have to go with them. If you just want fast speed, you can go with T-Mobile, and if you want reliable calls, you can go with AT&T. But if you want both of those things, you kind of have to go with Verizon. They're the only people in town that do that reliably for this area. So I gotta have my Verizon line. Well, if I buy a Verizon Android phone, I can't put Google Fi on it. Not for It's either 3 or 6 months. And like I said, they will never unlock that bootloader. So now I'm like, nope, I will just go directly to Samsung, which is what I did for my Z Fold 4. And it was nice. I liked the Z Fold 4. It did all these things that I wanted. I didn't care about iMessage. Whoop-de-doo. I don't care about the blue bubbles. I can send SMS. I can send RCS. So to other people who are also on Android, I had just fine messaging. It was the iPhone users that were like, oh, you're limited. Okay, well, I guess that kind of sucks for you. You know, I can send tapbacks even, and it will, my phone interprets the tapbacks correctly. The fact that iPhones, you know, wasn't at the time was, well, I guess it sucks to be you. Is that not my problem? But my biggest problem with Android was the health ecosystem. And that was really the thing that ended up really driving me back, was the fact that on iPhone, on iPad, I still don't have it on Mac. I still don't have a health app on my Mac. I'm sorry, I'm in my, let's just call it mid to upper 40s now. I don't want to watch my health data on a tiny little screen. I want a larger screen. I mean, the iPad Mini, I have one of each. They're great devices. I really like them. And now that they finally have health data on them, I was like, whoo, wow. They got the health data on the iPad, so I can actually view it. I can pull it up on my big, large screen, and I can scroll through it and look at pieces of data and get nice large graphs I can easily see. Okay, cool. That's really awesome, because I'd like to have one place to see all my health data. Android still doesn't have that. They still do not have any way to get the health data in one place. Android, please. Like, I know that if I'm using Android, Google's getting a copy of all my data. I know this. And yet I'm still willing to use Android anyways. So Google, could you please just build a health app and let people say, yes, I am willing to let you store this data in the cloud for me. And yes, legally it's supposed to be mine. And I understand and acknowledge you're probably going to read it anyways. And you're probably going to sell that data to advertisers, because I would assume, even if you told me up and down and you swore you wouldn't do it, you'd probably still do it anyway. And I wouldn't even know you're doing it. I'd have a hard time proving it, which is why I'd assume that you're doing it, because I couldn't prove you're not. And honestly, unless I had irrefutable proof, it wouldn't matter anyways, because I wouldn't be able to hold you accountable. But because Google is like, oh, the people are going to think if we've got their health data, we're selling it. Yeah, of course, because you're Google. Sorry, the whole do no evil, be no evil, whatever it was thing, you guys dumped that years ago, and you obviously did, so you burned through that karma. It's gone. Live with it. Embrace the whole we know everything about you mantra, and allow us to use that to benefit us. But anyway, sorry. Bit of a rant there. My real rant isn't Google needs to get over this and just build a better health ecosystem so that way Android is awesome. Because at that point I have really no significant reason to stay on iPhone. It's not iMessage keeping me here. It's not even the Apple Watch. It was. Until, what, about 2 years ago? About 2 years ago, Apple Watch was like, it was Apple Watch and health were the two things that kept pulling me back to iOS. And then they came out with the, gosh, what was that Android watch that I just had? Like, well, because when I switched back to Android, I got an Android watch. Was it the Sport 4? It was Samsung's. It was Samsung's. I want to say it was Sport 4, but maybe it was something else. Because it was right before the Pixel Watch came out. And in fact, I think I waited a tiny, tiny bit. And then the Pixel Watch came out, and I was like, it's all right, but, it's not great. And I think at the time I was like, I'll just get the Samsung Watch. And don't get me wrong, I think Samsung makes some interesting additions to the Android ecosystem. But Samsung isn't Google, and so they're not large enough to build a proper health ecosystem. So Samsung Health was like, okay, cool. It works with Samsung data they get from the Samsung Watch, if you have a Samsung Watch. And then that's kind of it. It didn't work with my Bluetooth scale that does like body fat percentages and all. Didn't work with that at all. Doesn't work with my my little Bluetooth blood pressure sensor. No, that goes to yet a different app. And none of the Android apps can talk to each other. Whereas, in the Apple world, they're like, oh yeah, no, we have all this health data. And like, yeah, your app might have more specific data points that, maybe we haven't added to the health app, but honestly, they add a lot of data points to the Apple Health app. It works really well. I love it. The Apple Health app is what really keeps me there. Because now that they've solved the watch, I've even built a few of my own watch faces. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I could do my own watch faces. I can literally design them however I want. And honestly, performance-wise, they were pretty decent. I had no real problems with it. But it's health. Health keeps bringing me back. And it's the only thing really keeping me on Apple. But if Apple either made iMessage available on the web or allowed us like an API, and maybe after we have to reauthorize it every 30 days or whatever, but then we get to choose our own external app to pull and push messages, or a court just orders Apple and says, hey, you can't demand that users of your platform can only use your platform for sending texts. If they said, hey, you know what, you have to allow other apps to register for texts, then I would load that app. I'd load up Signal, or maybe if Google made a Google Messages for iPhone, I'd turn off iMessage and I'd use that for my texts, because then I could get it on my other computers that aren't Apple. And that's where I'm going. I want the freedom to choose what I want to use to talk to people who aren't Apple. And the problem is Apple's the gatekeeper to my Verizon SMS. Apple's the gatekeeper to my Google Fi. And Verizon had Messages Plus for a while. And then they just earlier this year announced, oh, by the way, we're going to shut that down because really you should just use Google Messages. And I'm like, that isn't available for my platform. And Apple won't let you. It keeps coming back to Apple. Apple loves having that control, and I'm kind of not liking it. Anyways, that's my thought for the morning. And that is something that, I've been having arguments on Twitter, and it's really frustrating. And I'm like, it's this huge divide between the Apple, I'll call them Apple fanboys, people who are like, I never want to be in that walled garden, and then the people who are like, Apple stuff works really well, but Apple only works well within its own self, within its own walled garden. And it's a garden, but at the same time, it's also kind of a prison. It's hard to break out. Having done it several times, and then I'm like, I keep getting pulled back in. It's like an addiction. It's kind of like alcoholism or a crack addiction. It's like you get off of it for a bit and you're like, okay, cool. This is really cool. There's some things, like, hey, life could be really cool outside here. And then you're like, yeah, but you just get a little bit of a taste of, oh, it'd be so much easier if you just give in and just let us do what we want and live things our way. Yeah. It's like, I'm sorry, everything Apple isn't all that great. There are flaws in Apple stuff. Now they fix it. I do love how they will fix, like, if there's malware out there, they'll release a new signature and be like, yeah, I don't care if we broke some other app. Sucks to be you, but we're going to break the malware's ability to execute. Don't get me wrong. I think that's awesome. Microsoft could never get away with that. Microsoft has to be compatible with viruses from Windows 3.1 effectively. And Linux, God, Linux is not, still, there will never be a year of the Linux desktop. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. You'd have to have one company that basically actually builds a desktop everybody wants. And that's just not a thing. The whole idea behind Linux is it's fractured, and that's desirable. And to a point, you see that same thing in Android, and I get that. And don't get me wrong, the benefits of Linux are I can do things the way I want. Oh, I want a new traceroute program? I can just build my own if I want. And I like that. Don't get me wrong. That flexibility to do it the way I want is nice. And in the Mac world, there's the one way to do it. You have to do it that one way. Works nicely when the company that does it the one way does it the way you want, or a way you want. But as soon as Apple says you can't do it any other way, we won't allow you, then I start to have a problem of, I like having a nice way to do it, but I need to be able to do it my way. Like how I can't do Wi-Fi scanning on my iPhone. I am a CTO. I will go into a client sometimes, or a prospect, and I could pull up my Android phone and just do a Wi-Fi scan, or just do it even at my office. Oh, somebody's complaining about low Wi-Fi speeds? Okay, well, let me just look at the signals for your APs and kind of how things are going on. Now, if I'm in the UniFi world and I've got UniFi switches and firewalls and all these other things, then I can kind of do the same thing, because what all it's really doing is asking the controllers and access points, hey, give me my signal. That's such a lame way to do it, but it is a workaround. But on Android, I can just do it like on the device, and I don't need special equipment just to do it that one way. And it frustrates me that Apple won't let you do those things, even if you want to, even if you understand those risks and you still want to do it anyways. Apple's like, nope, we just don't even allow it. That's a huge turnoff. And that's what keeps pushing me away from Apple and making me go, I want Android, but Android's got its flaws too. Can't I use both? Nope, Apple won't let you. Apple won't let you. Google has no problem with it. None whatsoever. Apple won't let you. It frustrates me because I don't see that ever changing. Except when and where courts demand it. Like how in Europe, the courts are demanding Apple must allow you to sideload apps. They can no longer allow you to only go through their app store. Why? Because they're considered a gatekeeper for a platform used by enough people in Europe that Europe's like, yep, nope, you qualify as essentially a public access platform, and therefore you do have to open certain things up. And by the way, Microsoft had a not entirely dissimilar thing with Internet Explorer here in the United States. They were caught basically using their platform to ensnare users and prevent them, or make it so hard as to effectively prevent them from using alternatives. And even here in America, the freedom country, where companies are free to do whatever they want, even here it was ruled that, yeah, no, that's anti-competitive. I kind of wish somebody would just rule, hey, Apple's exclusive use of Messages app, not iMessage, the Messages app, was anti-competitive, and they have to allow you to use another company's Messages app to process your text messages from your carrier. If they did that, the beeper would honestly just step in and be like, cool, we can finally do text messages. And now you can do it, and then you can do it on all your other devices. And Apple could be like, hey, you have to approve this. We're going to make you reapprove it every 30 days or whatever. Fine. But let me do that. Let me have that freedom. Give me the individual freedom, not the company's freedom to decide what it wants for me. Okay, rant over, because honestly, I see people in Starbucks. So I want my Starbucks. I've got a long day ahead of me. Want to get all of the stuff off my plate as much as I can. I will upload this here soon. And I want you guys to have a great day.